Hey everybody, welcome back to the OnBase podcast. I'm your host, Chris Moody, and today I'm very excited to be joined by Preet Sibia with us to talk about go-to-market transformation done right. Preet, thanks for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's good to see you. We are on opposite sides of the United States. We have afternoon and morning represented, which is a really good bookend of our day. But I like to start every episode with the same question, and it's giving you the opportunity to talk about your journey. So what led you to what you're doing today?
Chris, that's a great question. I think for me, it's a lot about reflecting back. I've been in the semiconductor industry for nearly 30 years, which scares the heck out of me. It's been so fast. Certainly when I go back and to end up where I've been, I have to start at the beginning. Really, the beginning of my career in the semiconductor space, I was fortunate enough to be recruited by a company called Maxim. And the CEO of that company actually facilitated me getting a lot of broad experience early in my career. So it was a really fantastic training for me to get exposed to all parts of this industry, whether it's the back end manufacturing side, the sales and marketing side, and also the development side. So really kind of the cradle to grave of what we make and how we sell it, and then how we produce it, even at large manufacturing scale. So that experience, my first full-time job was actually answering tech support phone calls. So you never knew what was going to be on the other side of that line. And it was really quite amazing. I got to have this fun experience of getting a call from Microsoft, and they needed help with what turned out to be the Xbox. And I had no clue what they were working on, but they're asking for help on new technology. And it really made me fall in love with what I'd say is really the customer. How do we really work with customers and solve their problems? And that led me to my journey of working on products, then really working on the go-to-market piece of this. Plus, how do we distribute these things? So my journey over the time working at the leading semiconductor companies really has prepared me for the role I'm in now, which is leading a large go-to-market team that's really delivering success in the consumer computing and communication space, Infineon Technologies.
Outstanding. I love that. I hope you got a free Xbox out of this.
I didn't, but I became a customer from it. So it was nice to be able to pinpoint, hey, I helped work on that. You really it makes you have a lot of pride for something that you helped in a very small way.
Yeah, and it's the constant flex on children too. Just be, hey, I was a part of creating Xbox. Maybe you should behave. I did camp out for the first Xbox too. So
Same here.
thank you for making that happen. One thing that I'm always interested in manufacturing, semiconductors, I've been in medical devices, a lot of those types of industries, many companies orient everything in the go-to-market around their product. And they'll say, well, we've got product line 1 through 50, and each one has their own team and their own go-to-market strategy. And it's not always centered around the customer. And I was a product manager at a medical device company in a previous life. And I vividly remember calls just like the one you mentioned, where you'd find an issue with the product and then you track it down. And it was actually a very inexpensive accessory that we were trying to keep a high margin on that was causing all the issues with the expensive product, where you're going, oh, why didn't we just swap this out? And then you do, and everything's magic. So why should leaders prioritize the shift from a product-oriented go-to-market strategy to a customer-oriented go-to-market strategy? And what's at stake if they don't make that switch?
Well, when I look at that as a product oriented go-to-market and sales orientation, you're really becoming a lot more transactional. And you're not really understanding what benefits or what pain points the customer has overall, you're really trying to put the one widget in because that's what you got. I think if you stay that way, you can be very successful. I mean, we are a 16 billion euro company that was highly successful selling products. But we also know that if we want to get to the next phase of our growth story, we have to pivot and really become a lot more customer oriented and become way deeper at understanding their pain points and their success metrics. This allows us to really position the right solutions. And this is where you become much more of a strategic partner for the customer.
I'm curious, for those who are in, I want to say widget-based go-to-market after you said widget, those who are used to the heavily structured, potentially siloed product-based go-to-market strategies, what are the biggest internal challenges that companies face when they're trying to transition to be a little more focused on the customer, and how can leaders navigate those better?
Well, first of all, when you do have this, and we're living some of these challenges as well as we've done this change, it's really the people have seen that, hey, we were really successful. So why are we changing what worked? And really, you have to establish this North Star of what are we trying to get to and be clear. And I think this is the biggest challenge is seeing what that future is and why that customer centricity is so important. How does that both create value and how does that really scale to be able to live what you're trying to do? And one of the stories I have is it was very clear to me that we needed to make this shift. We were at a customer meeting and we had 20 plus people from our company in this meeting and everybody was representing a different product. Actually, the customer was confused because we spent 20 minutes going through introductions and we never got to the problem statement of what the customer was trying to solve and what are their pain points. So just for me, it's like using that story to tailor, hey, how do we do this differently? And the good news is we've been able to live this a little bit with over the last year and 3 months that we've done this change. It's been really nice to see the customer response when they can see that, hey, look, you're actually talking to me about my pain points, not what you have to sell first. So it changes the dynamics and really, I would say, makes you a co-investor in a way of delivering the customer success for them. And it really makes, I would say, the dynamics way different from an engagement standpoint.
Outstanding. Well, if you saw me laugh a little bit, if you're watching the video, everyone saw me smirk a little. When you talked about sellers from each product, it's very applicable to tech. Anyone in B2B sales and marketing, they have had those meetings where 8 folks from a big marketing conglomerate come and present to you all the different solutions that you could package together to have this ultimate one-stop shop, which we know is never the case. So that was my little bit of a laugh there, because that's applicable to any industry, especially tech, even though we started with semiconductors. I've been there. We've seen it. We honor the 8 reps that join and they're trying to shill their particular thing and do the slide handoffs. All right, let me plug in my machine and talk to you about why you should buy this. So if we're thinking about retention, one of the traps that I commonly see with go-to-market strategy is most people go straight to net new and they think, oh, we've got to close more customers. We've got to hit our pipeline. Let's focus on new business and go to some of the traditional demand gen approaches and, lead, MQL, op, close, right? Like trying to go that approach. If we focus in on retention, how does retention change if we're more oriented around the customer versus the product?
And Chris, those other parts of the go-to-market piece are also very important to expand. But as you said, for retention, the biggest topic I see is being able to go deeper with the customer. And if you've now up-leveled your interest more into understanding their pain points, I think these customers also allow you broader access to what they're really working on and how you can help. And so at the end, I would say that we're still selling product, but we're selling it in a different way. Instead of becoming very transactional, we're being more strategic of where their pain points are. And I think this is what's been a massive change. And as a result, your customer interfaces from a retention standpoint also change. You go from maybe purely the buyer or the sourcing person and up level more to the person that's developing the strategy of what kind of products the customer is trying to make. And they have a roadmap of what they're trying to deliver. You can now intercept way more strategic aspects to what they're doing by up leveling. And again, all of these things drive a deeper connection, more of a broader relationship. And as a result, you're actually going to be much more critical to their success.
Awesome. I love that. And the next question I have, it's a very simple one, but my brain is running through a couple scenarios. So I'll ask the simple It's not simple to answer. It's just a simply worded question. I will ask the simple question and then I'll give you the examples of where my brain is racing because it might be applicable or you may take it in a different direction. Either is totally fine. The question is, what operational shifts are critical to making this transition successful? So going from product to customer, because we talked about leadership a bit ago. But a couple places where my brain races to, I've been in organizations where I was a marketer or a product marketer for a specific product or collection of products that would be a subset of a massive offering to a customer. So we could end up in those situations where we've 8 people at the conference room table all selling, right? So that's one thing. I'm thinking if I'm a marketer in one particular pocket, how does this change my world? So the other scenario that I go to, if I'm a seller, I think most sellers are motivated by how they make money. So the incentivization of, pay for the behavior that you want. How do we start to make some of those changes if we're used to doing one or a smaller collection of specific things for one specific product line or group of products?
This is right into what we're facing on a day-to-day basis. I love the question. I would say that really the first step is having clarity of the processes. And when you're a product selling a go-to-market or product go-to-market orientation, you pretty much have a mix of different processes and very much split responsibilities, as you said. You have multiple people that are coming in. So the first thing you have to do is really create a standard sales process. And again, if you're driving more of a customer-centric, and I would even say customer and customer application centricity, you have to drive much more clarity there. And this is something we've done. And the other thing is have a lot of clarity around roles and responsibilities. Who's doing what to ensure we win? Because you cannot have everybody, again, the natural state had been everybody goes in. So you have to back that off and create new roles and structures that empower the go-to-market team, which the sales folks, but also in our industry, one of the key roles is also the role of the field applications engineer. And they really have to become a working team at the front line. And they're fully empowered to drive who needs to be where and when. So again, having that process and that framework for them to operate in, and then fully complemented by roles like application managers that really build out the collateral that with the understanding of what these customers need, not what we have, but what they need and what we can deliver towards achieving the outcome with the customer. I think that kind of tandem plus the support is critical. And that's something we've done to now, instead of 8 people going to the customer, maybe you have 2, or it's 2 plus a application oriented person. And again, it's about adding value to the customer. You cannot have somebody that goes in though that doesn't have that knowledge base. So one of the big steps is creating that expertise as well. So that does require a lot of effort up front in terms of training. I know your question was simple, but the complexity around it is actually quite great. And it does actually take quite a bit of effort to do this. And I even left out some of the other things you have to do, which is from an incentive standpoint, make sure each of these functions are also appropriately and individually incentivized towards the outcomes you're trying to get, because the natural state is simply go to revenue design wins, and that's great. But now you have to complement with, okay, how deep are we going with the customer? What other metrics can we create, especially around more solution orientation? Are we selling one product, or are we selling 2 or 5 that are actually at a different level now?
Yeah. Complexity. This same thing applies here. The word alignment, right? I think it's oversimplified. Everyone says that they're aligned. Almost everyone is not really aligned. They're not talking to each other enough. They're not having the right conversations. There's not enough structure. All the things, and clear roles and responsibilities can certainly help with that. But I'm curious what alignment should look like in this scenario. And your example was a really good one. If we're putting 1 or 2 people in front of the customer, and we know that sales, marketing, product, all the teams have to be working in lockstep together. I'm trying to stray from the word synergy, because I know we turn that into memes these days. But what should alignment look like in this type of scenario?
I think it really comes down to, and working at a German company, we really live the alignment culture, which is the first time in my career it's like fully lived. It really is about people, right? And making sure that the people with their clarity of role and responsibility are also, again, from a who is the owner of the customer interface, it is the account manager. So they are in the front and they are fully empowered to bring the right people in to drive the alignment to achieve the outcome of success with their customer. And I think this is one of the key steps, is empowering those individuals to drive the go-to-market play. And that doesn't mean they own all the steps, but they end up being, let's say, the quarterback, using a sports analogy. And my friends in Europe will probably say, well, they're kind of the midfielder or whatever in football. But it really is having that facilitator that really calls the play, that helps drive the execution of the play, and gets all of the players in the right part of the pitch or the field to be able to achieve the outcome with the customer. And I think that's where you don't by default go to 8 people at the customer. You pull the ones that you need and do the discovery work up front, and then map out, and then where you have to drive the expertise. Like that's where I'd say that alignment is achieved via kind of the leader that's in the sales and account management.
Awesome. And I want to talk about change management, and a comment quickly on change management. I think that across 20 years in predominantly B2B tech, for me, resistance to change can often lead to regrettable attrition. Well, it's used air quotes, regrettable attrition. Some folks are resistant to change and they're not going to change. Change is inevitable in any high growth organization, especially if we're moving from a product focus to a customer focus. What are the best practices you've seen work for handling change management?
I think communication are super critical. And I would say, as you're going through this change, you have to pull in people to be part of crafting it. So identifying change agents is very critical, because they need to be the champions, both to get inputs of what may be in the way of change implementation, but also to help champion the change itself. So those I find to be really good practices. The other thing is, after multiple journeys, being acquired at other companies, going into something new, doing this go-to-market change, it's really bringing the key leaders together up front and have them help define the change journey, because they have to implement it. So if they're part of the crafting of it, it's really important that they are fully committed now. I think that participation, and I'd even call it like fair process leadership, if you will, of them being included, really allows them to drive the change forward. Now, it's never perfect. I mean, change, as you highlighted, is there's going to be attrition. There's going to be people that don't want to live the change. And one of the things is, you also, as a leader, cannot invest all your cycles on the people that do not want to live the change. It's going to be controversial, but you actually have to channel all of your energy on the ones that do, because if you don't give them all the oxygen, the change will stall out. And as you keep moving and investing in the ones that want to drive the change, I mean, of course, with the change, anyways, you have your endpoint, and you're going to have to make some pivots along the way to get to the endpoint. But if you're going with that team that wants to do it, naturally, it's going to pull through some of the resistant ones, and you'll get the attrition of the ones that do not want to change. And at some point, as you're going through this journey, it's unfortunate, but you're going to have some folks that are going to have to be left behind, because but that's a choice. I would say you don't ignore them at the beginning. You get them fully on board initially and get them communicated. But then as you start moving, you cannot go back. That would be one of the things that I'd say that is very critical.
Yeah, that was a personally challenging, insightful comment that you had there, because we just went through a pretty big strengths assessment as a leadership team and a marketing leadership team, both. And I know personally, I tend to skew a little people pleaser and trying to make sure that everyone is included and pull everyone along for the ride. And it was a great point of reflection for me to realize that I am the most successful when I lean into my strengths versus trying to round out weaknesses. So almost know hey, I'm better at these things. The team needs these things. I need to do that. And your point there is a very relevant one for me to say, like, go forward, get the right ones being even stronger. And then that will naturally fix either the ones who are lagging, they catch up, or they don't. And you have to say, hey, a different boat's going to pick them up. We're just leaving them in the water. We have to keep going. So that was a really good comment there. I have a quick question here before we get to the lightning round. So we'll have some very fast, rapid fire questions there. What is the most counterintuitive decision that you've made that actually paid off?
Well, I ended up a few years ago. I was presented with a challenge. Like I was running a group that needed to do publications, and I hired an engineering manager for this task. And normally, you hire somebody that's really good with literature or like a background in the space. And I hired this engineering manager, and I was shocked how well they turned out because this person created a bunch of automation. It actually improved the efficiency of the organization by like 10x and really scaled us to something that we'd never been able to do before. And it was kind of like it was counterintuitive from a background standpoint, but it followed the best available athlete rule. It was the best available athlete at the time, and just incredibly amazed at how well that worked out.
I love that. And shout out Chris Baggett. Chris Baggett, when he hired me at Compendium before Oracle bought Compendium, that was his approach. He said, it's NFL draft. I find the best athlete, like best talent available, and then I will build the role based on the person. So just come to Indianapolis and talk to me. And I said, oh, I love that approach. Let's go. I didn't know job title, pay, anything. My wife thought I was insane, but it all worked out.
That's it's all part of the journey, right? It's what core tools do you bring, and then you can apply them to any different task.
Yeah, love that. Okay, last question before the very fast ones. I almost missed it, but it's a very important one. What are the best metrics or indicators to show that a customer-oriented go-to-market strategy is driving business impact?
So there's a few. I mean, obviously, as I mentioned at the beginning, we are still selling product in our case, and it's how much more product are you selling? And you can look at leading indicators, of course, of what's in the funnel for products, but it's also feedback from the customers is also very relevant. And so we do a lot of surveys to our customers to see how do they rate how we're performing. Again, seeing a lot of positive outcomes. And I like just talking to customers and leadership at customers myself, because it's really that they're not going to be shy about what's in the way. Right. And if you're not doing a good job for them, they will also not be shy. And they've been very happy with us being a lot more streamlined in how we interact with them. They have clarity that who is the go-to person for them, and that being that account manager or the FAE as kind of their go-to people, and they don't have the confusion. I mean, I think that is also a key thing that we've seen, even in our surveys that we've gotten back, is the confusion is not there for them anymore. They have very clear knowledge of who is their key customer interfaces for them. And that's also true for our own people. So I think that's a big step. And of course, the metrics in terms of how we're doing from a design activity. But it's a journey, Chris. It's not done. It's ongoing. Really, I envision this is going to be a multi-year journey ahead.
Totally. Yeah. And I'll attest to that. We update some of our OKRs quarterly and some we keep the same. And a lot of times it may not be the perfect metric, but it's a metric to drive the behavior that we need. So specifically on my team, one thing that I look at personally is our LinkedIn followers. And I know we could game the system. We don't. I know it's not a direct correlation to ROI. It's not. But I also know that if we're getting a constant uptick of organic following, we're doing a lot of the things right that I need to happen. Better social, better content, better engagement, connecting with influencers. So to your point, it's a constant evolution, and that will probably change. It might be 2 quarters from now where I say, hey, I want to prioritize engagement, not just the following. But right now, that's the right one for us. So I'm with you on that. We have some quick hitters now. So these can be insanely fast answers. But the first, it's a big loaded question. You are constrained to one answer. What is the single biggest challenge in B2B marketing today?
Wow. I think for marketing, it's really that measuring ROI with a concrete, like real number. And it's often very difficult to tie in direct revenue from a marketing effort. And that's the one for me, at least in my space.
Yep, I hear you on that. What about technology? Favorite tools or tech that you're using today?
This is the age of AI, right? So I obviously use Gemini quite a bit to help, at least for preparation for customer meetings. It does a great job summarizing financials and some of their latest announcements. But I would actually, I'm gonna do a bonus one if okay. I'd say
Sure.
a good pair of headphones is also very important, especially to get that space to be able to think and process information and plan the next step.
Yes, I will plus one that both. I used Gemini yesterday for dish recommendations at a restaurant we were driving to with my wife and oldest daughter in the car. So I just did the voice and I was like, tell us the best things we should order at Indochina in Wilmington. And it was like, hey, here are the top dishes. Cool. That was awesome. And then for headphones, I'm wearing the AirPod Max right now, but I also have a nice Sony noise canceling headset and the Bose headset. I just vary depending on which trip, how long, what the comfort level is. So with you on that for sure. What about good reads? Now that we say reads, it's a little misleading. It could be book, blog, newsletter, podcast. What are the favorite things that you're consuming?
Oh, wow. I have a few books behind me, so maybe I'll grab a couple here for you. I'd say that first is this book called Range, which is by David Epstein. This is outstanding. It's really about exploring different things early in your career. I know you have a mix of followers on this podcast, so I think that people early in their career, they should explore different career paths just to learn what they really like and they're passionate about. And then the other one is Backstage Leadership, which is from one of my professors from INSEAD. Also a great book. This is really about leadership and not just all the front facing things that leaders have to do, but really going back into the processes and understanding what's the plumbing of the organization. So you really go deep and understand things so you can apply the right fixes along the way and you don't fully delegate the approach on how to construct an organization and the processes. So I think they're actually quite interconnected for me personally because I've had a breadth of experience. So I've done the dynamic range and now I'm applying it with some of the backstage leadership learnings as well. So they're very applicable for me, and I think they could be great reads for your audiences.
Great recommendations. And what a phenomenal title, Backstage Leadership. As soon as you said it, I knew exactly what it was about. I was going, that's a great title. What about people? Going from reads, content to people, who inspires you the most?
Well, I would say probably two people. I would say in my career, the biggest inspiration was the founder of Maxim, who's no longer with us, a gentleman named Jack Gifford. I was very privileged to be able to get a university scholarship from him and a lot of personal investment in terms of coaching and really the experience that I mentioned early in my career that was largely attributed to the opportunities he created for me. But then it would really be my mom. It's like my mom constantly inspires me because she's had to take on multiple roles throughout her life. And for me, it's about getting that range, but also figuring out how to keep leading and how to keep getting better. And my mom always inspires me to do that. And she does it herself.
10 out of 10 response there. I usually transition to the last question by saying, and now the most important question. But after your mom as the answer, I feel like that was the most important question. So the second most important question to close out our time together, Preet, how can everyone get in touch with you after this episode?
I'm available on LinkedIn, Preet Sibia. I'm the one at Infineon, so readily available there. And if anybody wants to contact me by email, my email is preet.sibia@infineon.com. And I'd love to hear from your audience.
Love it. You crushed it, Preet. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Chris.